Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So as I'm sure most of you know, I'm all about the Assassin rework. I mean, they're finally reworking my main type of champions and I'm very excited for it. But personally, I'm a very impatient person, so I went out, spent a few hours researching more about this topic and trying to find out more information, stalked a lot of the comments made by two writers throughout the boards, and here I have a video summing up everything that I found out, giving you guys an idea on which champions are pretty much going to be for sure getting a rework, the champions that will most likely get a rework, whether it's a small one or a big one, and champions that probably are not going to be touched whatsoever throughout this rework, or at least maybe very minor. So if you guys end up enjoying this video after my hours of research, then let me know by hitting that like button, and this video will also be made in collaboration with ProGuides. It's a neat site that has a lot of guides to try and help you become a better player. There's a free trial link down below, and they have a really cool feature where you can talk to high elo players almost at any single time, asking them almost any question. So I highly recommend at least checking it out. Alright, so the very first thing that I found out that's kind of more of a general type of information for the overall Assassin rework is how many champions that will be getting the biggest changes, like the big 6 for the Mage update. According to Ride Meddler and Ride Reeve, which are the two names you'll be seeing very often throughout this video, it seems like it'll be somewhere around 4 assassins getting the big changes, the massive ones, the ones where several abilities will be different. This obviously might change, but it still gives you a very rough idea, so chances are it'll be between 3 and 5 champions, on top of a few more getting smaller changes, maybe around 4. But let's move into the first champion that I'm 99% sure is going to be getting a massive rework, or at least be a part of the big 4. And that champion is going to be Rengar. Now again, this is not 100%, but I'll be willing to almost bet that, you know what, if Rengar is not part of the big 4 update or the big whatever for the Assassin rework, I will make a video of myself playing AP Garen in the mid lane, and AP Garen has no AP scaling, so it'll be pretty bad. Usually whenever a writer tends to have a decent amount of information as to what they would want to change about a champion, then chances are they're already thinking about it and they're probably already working on it. And there have been many posts before of writers saying how Rengar they consider to be a very unhealthy champion and how he deserves some changes. So I'm sorry to everyone that mains Rengar, I know you guys love this champion, but chances are he is going to be part of the massive changes for the Assassin rework. Following Rengar, we have Fizz. Now this one is a little more uncertain as to whether or not he's going to be part of the big changes or the small changes, but I am 100% sure that they will include him in at least one of the two. Because based on this comment made by Meddler, I mean, just like Echo, even though I don't think they'll be touching Echo based on what I've read, it seems like it is something that they want to work on. I mean, he's a champion that has always been a very interesting kind of champion. He's always been either a very big problem or a very weak champion. So making him work out and not be able to be played as some tanky brews in the top lane, or a fighter type champion with Trinity Force, or even an AP mid laner in the mid lane of course, or even sometimes in the jungle, he just has way too much flexibility and way too many build tasks being played in very different styles that Riot clearly is not okay with this. So chances are, based on his comment, they don't really have any short-term balance changes happening to him, so they're probably saving it for the big changes happening to the assassins. And to further back this up, you can see that Reeve over here says that if they ever do touch Fizz, which chances are they will be, because I'll be very surprised if they don't, the main goal is going to be to devalue the tank builds, and the only way to do that is to heavily change the way his W works, because that's one of the biggest reasons or the biggest culprits at the very moment. So I see one of two things happening with Fizz. Either he'll be part of the big changes and they'll change the way his maybe passive works, his W and his E ability, or he'll be part of the smaller changes and they'll change around his W either completely or just a little bit. Next up, we have another very popular assassin champion, and that is Talon. Talon has been pretty much confirmed that yeah, he will be getting some changes in the Assassin rework. The only thing that we're still not 100% sure about is it going to be part of the big changes or the small changes. And I say this because, well, Ride Meddler posted that Talon's passive is essentially absolute shit. It's just a horrible passive that needs to be changed because it just doesn't feel like a very fun one to use. So if he's part of the small changes, then chances are he'll be getting a little bit of tweaks in terms of damage and overall how his abilities work, on top of getting a completely new passive. Or he'll be part of the big changes, get a completely new passive still, but then they'll change his other abilities very heavily in order to make his new passive work together. If I really had to guess based on the rest of the information that I found out, he'll be part of the bigger changes because, well, if they give him a new passive, then chances are they'll have to change around his overall kit and make it work with this new passive as well. So I actually really like Talon. I feel like he's a lot of fun to play and he's a pretty cool champion, so I'm actually quite excited to see what they do with him, and is he going to be an even better champion, or is he maybe going to be, unfortunately, a worse champion? But I have faith in Riot. But moving along to the next assassin champion, we have Nocturne, who is listed as a primary role assassin champion. But it does seem like he's not going to be part of this assassin update whatsoever, because Riot apparently looks at him as more of a diving fighter type champion rather than an assassin. I mean, I can definitely agree with this. He doesn't really feel like an assassin. He definitely feels like a fighter, someone that dives on someone in the backline and just essentially keeps pushing forward and either he'll die first or his target. So according to Riot Meddler, he's not going to be part of this assassin update, and chances are if he ever does get any changes, it'll be in the future whenever Riot decides to work on the diving type champions. So for anyone that mains Nocturne, I mean, you can either be really happy or really sad, just depends on how much you love this champion. If you love him the way he is, then you can rejoice because he is not going to be touched. But if you want changes on him and you want a sort of a new feel to Nocturne, then unfortunately it is not yet your time. Next, let's talk about the champion I'm personally most excited about, or obviously my main champion, the one I care about the most, Zed. According to Riot Reeve, it seems like Zed is going to be pretty much guaranteed not part of the bigger changes, but he is going to be part of the assassin update overall, receiving some minor ones. Now, honestly, looking back at the mage update, for instance, looking at Annie was part of the smaller scope changes, but arguably, I mean, she did receive changes that were bigger than some of the other mages that were actually part of the big six. So even if Zed is part of the smaller changes, I mean, he can still definitely receive some very meaningful ones as well. So personally, I'm very excited to see what they do with him. He is my favorite champion, my favorite assassin, and if Riot makes some very cool and interesting changes, I'm all for it. But if the changes suck ass, I'll be pretty upset. So Zed is guaranteed to pretty much 100% be part of the smaller changes, but not the big ones. Next up, we also have Evelynn. Now, a lot of people have agreed that, you know what, this champion does feel a little outdated. I mean, some changes can be definitely used for this champion. And it seems like Riot definitely agrees. But unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit awkward because Evelynn is actually not going to be getting any changes in this assassin update. And if she does, it'll be very small ones because they're only quality of life. They're nothing absolutely major. There's something that'll just make Evelynn a better champion and more fluid. So I'll be very surprised if even any of her abilities get changed whatsoever, other than maybe just making them feel a little bit better. So for instance, not having to absolutely spam the hell out of your Q button and probably get carpal tunnel syndrome from playing Evelynn a little too much. But they have stated that Evelynn does deserve some very big changes, to the point where honestly the changes are so big that they aren't really part of this assassin update, because she can probably get a solo update all than herself, something like maybe a Rise update or a Poppy update. And honestly, this is kind of interesting because I'm very curious to see what exactly will they do to Evelynn. What kind of huge changes will they apply to this champion? But for all of you Evelynn mains out there, you can definitely kind of relax a little bit. Your Evelynn is not being touched, and if she is, it'll be very, very minor changes. Next up, let's talk about Katarina, who, if I had to honestly guess, is going to be one that's going to be part of the big four. So far we would have Rengar, we would have Talon, and we would have Katarina. Now, based on the very first comment made by Reeve, again, this was about 21 days ago, so it's quite a while, but he does say that she will be a great champion for the roster scope project, likely on the larger side. Now, at the very beginning, he does say they haven't locked it down yet, but I mean, it is 21 days ago, but based on how he wrote this comment, it definitely suggests that, you know what, Katarina is going to be part of the assassin update. It's just a matter of, is it going to be part of the big changes or the small changes? But following this, Reeve made another somewhat recent post, this time talking more about Katarina, saying that if she does get a rework, chances are she can go in many different directions, and there's a lot of potential with this champion. And usually, if there's a lot of things you can do with the champion, Riot will look at them and most likely change them. But there's also one more post I want to show you guys talking about Katarina, where Reeve did say how if she were to get the bigger changes or changes in general, her Q, her W are probably the best things to look at and change, especially her W, because honestly, I mean, it is a pretty boring ability. And he did say 2 abilities. I mean, 2 abilities is quite a bit, especially if they actually get changed a lot. So to me, that instantly says, you know what, there's an extremely high chance that Katarina is going to be part of the bigger changes. So if you're a Katarina main, that's what I would expect. But let's move into another champion that I feel like a lot of people have also said, yeah, she deserves a rework. I mean, this champion just is completely outdated. She's extremely linear and honestly a little bit boring to play. And that champion is none other than Akali. But it does seem like Akali will be getting the Evelynn treatment, where yes, she does deserve some huge changes to her overall kit and playstyle, but they're to the point where they're so big that she also deserves a full solo visual update and gameplay update and all that stuff. So if Akali was going to be receiving any changes in this Assassin update, it does seem like it'll be on the smaller end, at least just to make her a little bit more interesting for the meantime, because if they were to ever make a huge, just full out update on Akali herself, it'll be way down the line. So we could be expecting some very small changes to her overall kits, but again, nothing major, and chances are Akali is still gonna be Akali after the Assassin update. But the last bit of information that I want to share with you guys that I found out to be very interesting is this. Now, first of all, Riot Reeve has confirmed that it seems to be 4 or 5 champions that will be getting the big changes. So like I said earlier, either the big 4 or the big 5. But he also confirms that, yeah, you know what, Evelynn is not going to be getting any large changes because she's super high on the list to get a full visual gameplay update. And if anything ever happens to Evelynn, it'll just be very, very, very minor changes. But the other 2 champions, like I said earlier, is going to be Akali, who probably will get also very small changes in the Assassin update, but nothing too big because she also deserves a full solo visual game update. But the last champion we haven't talked about is Shaco. Shaco also, just like Akali and just like Evelynn, deserving of a solo update. And if he ever does get any changes in this Assassin update, chances are it'll be something very minor. So all in all, guys, I mean, that's a lot of the information that I currently found out by doing some research because I'm just excited for this rework, man. I want to know more about this. The second Riot announces anything absolutely 100% concrete official, I'll be right on it and I'll be making videos. But what we have learned from this so far is the fact that, yeah, chances are Talon, Rengar, and probably Katarina are going to be part of the bigger changes. Then you have champions like Zed, you have champions like maybe Akali, Evelynn, and Shaco. They'll be getting very small changes. Fizz actually could be part of the small or the big changes as well. Echo probably will not be touched, or again, very small changes, and the exact same thing happens to Nocturne, where chances are he's not going to be touched whatsoever. But there you guys have it, a lot of information and a lot of research put into one video to hopefully give you and even myself a better idea as to what we can expect from the Assassin update. If you guys did enjoy this video or learned something new or found it informative or interesting, let me know by hitting that like button. Make sure to share this with your friends, as I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what exactly is going to be happening in this Assassin update. But I truly thank each and every one of you so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next video. Peace.